Hi everyone, it's the 1st of December, so welcome to day one of the Crafty Kit Advent Kit. Got a nice little teaser on the front of bag one as to what we might be making today. We have a ball, white wool, and this sparkly green wool, and some thread. And today we're going to be making a Christmas tree. This is what I managed to do. I've put it on a base to make it a bit more stable, but of course you could just hang it from your Christmas tree. When I was making it, I wrote down a few things that I thought might be useful to you, particularly for beginners who've not made anything like this before. The first instruction says to wrap your ball in the white wool. Well, if you just wrap it up, you're going to have quite an amount to push through with your needle and not get it particularly straight. So I would advise maybe spreading the wool out a little bit, or even just ripping it in half, doing half, and then you've got that other half to play with to make the right shape. This is what my mat looked like when I'd finished. A bit hairy, so if you've got a spare piece of felt to put over your mat just to protect it, I think that would be a jolly good idea. The other thing I did was I made one in white wool, and when I was doing the green on the top, I kept seeing white bits through it, so I actually covered mine with the forest green wool to start with. So that might be useful for some of you who've got spare wool. Putting it on the tree, you start off like this, stab it down the middle. I actually cut it to about 3 centimetres because, as you can see here, some bits end up a bit shorter than the others. And you can always trim it later if you think it's too long. But having got like this, those of you who've done long-haired animals will know that you often will fold it over and stab it again from underneath, just to make sure that you've got all those threads attached. Actual lights, I had some of these lights ready spaced and strung, and that's what I've put on my tree here. I did make a narrower one, so I made it with the actual tree narrower, but then I also cut it to make it a longer tree, and I put a star on. So there's all sorts of possibilities, but you end up with a lovely tree at the end of it. So good luck, and I hope you enjoy it.
Hello, my name's Judy and welcome to the day 2 and 3 project of the Crafty Kit Company Needle Felting Advent Calendar. So let's have a look what we've got today. And we have a little rhyme, and it says, "We're snug in our shell, green and round, often found in a vegetable mound. Together we grow, but apart we're a treat. What are we?" Well, let's have a look what we've got. Oh, here we go. So we've got 3 little white balls, we've got some green felt, and we've got red, white, green and black wool. There we go. And we are making peas in a pod. And in the best traditions, here's one I made earlier. So, as I said, today I'm going to share 1 or 2 little tips and hints that I've come across having had a go at making it myself. So the first thing is in covering the white pea. And really, less is more on this. You don't need very much of the green wool at all. Look how wispy that is. If you have a big clump, basically you've got a heck of a lot of needle felting to do to make it nice and smooth, and you've already got everything there for you. So give it a little roll and then just anchor it over and needle felt away, just pulling it over, minding your fingers and covering it. And you can see, I'm not going to do it all, but you can see that little bit of felt is going to cover that by the time I've felted it. I'm using the 3 multi-needle tool that you can get off Crafty Kit Company. Really good when you've just got a lot of needle felting that you want to do pretty quickly. That's pretty boring stuff and doesn't need a lot of finesse, okay, because you've got 3 needles going at once. So that's what you do. And as you're doing it, needle felt it a bit, give it a little roll, needle felt it a bit more until you get it nice and smooth like that, okay? So we're going to do that 3 times. And then the next part of the project is to put these little faces on. And there are 3 ways you can do this. The first way is the traditional way, and the purest way, I suppose, that's in the project. And that is taking a wispy little bit of the black and put lots of liquid on your fingers, give it a nice roll. There we go, till we've got something nice and tight like that. And we'll just put a little mouth on. So we're just going to break it on, put a little bit on the pea, and get one of your finest needles. This is a 40 that I'm using. Anchor it in the corners just so that you've got it in there, and then just slowly just push it in where you want it to go first of all, so you've got the shape, and then just slowly drag it. You don't need to do an awful lot of felting here. Just slowly take your time and drag that into place. So I would spend a little bit more time on that, but you can see already that we've got the start of a little mouth. So just gently poke it and make it go where you want it to go. So that's one way of doing it. Second way, if you really struggle with that, and it is quite hard, is to get some embroidery thread on a long needle and poke it through and literally put the stitches and pull them back and forth. You'll have a bit of a mess on the back, but we won't see that. We'll have covered that up. And just use the embroidery thread to make the face. And the third way you can do is with a couple of the little eyes that you may have in your stash, or again, you can get these from Crafty Kit Company, and you just use your nice big pokey tool, make some holes. You can always put a little bit of glue on if you want, and make another. And to be honest, you don't need much more than just putting little eyes on if you wanted. You could get away with just doing that if you want to make life nice and simple. So that's what we need to do first. So I will see you tomorrow to talk a little bit more about the Santa hats and putting everything together. Hello again and welcome to day 3 of the Crafty Kit Company Advent Calendar, and this is day 2 of our Peas in the Pod project. So hopefully by now you have got 3 peas all covered in green and you've got little faces on all of your peas in whichever way you've chosen to do it. So today I'm going to tell you 1 or 2 little tips that I've learnt in putting the Santa hats on. So first of all, again, like putting the green on the pea, you don't need a lot. So you can see I've got about this much and it's not very thick. And I've folded it in half that way, and then I've folded it in half that way. So I've got that sort of shape. And then just roll it as tightly as you can to make a little cone shape, and then stab it to anchor it, and then stab it all the way around that top bit, leaving this fuzzy bit loose. So you've got a shape something like that. I'll just finish that one off a little bit. And then we splay out the little fuzzy bits onto our pea so that it looks like that, and just anchor that on all the way round and tidy up take your time and just tidy up those little red bits so it's securely fitted on. If it's a little bit too high, you can just take your tool and stab downwards into it like that, and you can see it starts to go a little bit lower. So if it's a little bit tall, don't worry, you can stab it down until we get something that looks roughly like that. And if at this stage you'd like to have a little bendy bit on your hat, a bit like that, then you just bend it where you want it to go and stab it a few times like that, and you'll see you'll get a little bend. The other little tip I've got for you is we're going to put the white on. So you need a piece roughly like that and give it a bit of a twist. So again, it's a bit firmer, put it all round and anchor it. But you will have lots of little fuzzy bits. Now the way, if you want a nice smooth edge like I've put around here, the way to do that is to get your needle and just felt those little bits in towards the rim. So you're just picking up the wispy bits and pushing them in that direction. And you can see that starts to give you a nice smooth line. And you can see the difference between that bit and that bit where I've done it. And I'm just literally stabbing downwards into the band. Okay, so then you will be all ready to put it all together. So hopefully by now you've cut out your little felt shape for your pea pod, and you can get two from the piece of felt. I've used my glue gun because you can do it, it's stuck instantly for you. I've stuck the two bits together at the end, and I have stuck together all my peas and just pushed them together. And then you are laying them inside. It looks fiddly, but actually it isn't. And then you just stab into the felt. Just do a couple to show you how it works, because it's really, really quick. And you can see already that is pushing into the shape. And it's as simple as that. Finally, we can just finish off by putting a little bit of ribbon. I put a bow and I put a little bit of glitter over mine as well. So hope you've enjoyed the tips and hints, and I will leave you just with maybe a pea joke for Christmas. So why is a carrot orange and pointy? Because if it was round and green, it would be a pea. Happy Christmas.
Hi, I'm Vicky, and I've had the pleasure of making day 4 of the Crafty Kit Advent Calendar. Day 4's bag contains a lovely combination of 4 brightly coloured wools to make a cute stacking pile of Christmas presents. The stack of presents is made by simply making 3 separate cube shapes, starting with the smallest and making the other ones with more wool each time to make the size graduate larger. If you're unsure about how much wool to use though, you could alternatively start by making the largest one first, using all or nearly all of the blue wool, and then reducing the amount each time and go down the way. I find it quite tricky to make the cube shape as it first starts out like a cylinder. However, I found the easiest way to sort that is by rolling it in my fingers and to squish down each side to try and make it into more of a cube, and then continuing stabbing as I went along. If you have a craft iron, this is a perfect way to try and help make the sides flatter and more into a cube shape. As you can see, I've got a cute cow one. Very carefully with your craft iron, smooth over each side. If you don't have a craft iron, you could try with a normal iron, but be very careful as the cubes are really quite small. Using the yellow wool provided, you could create a bow and some ribbon using a few strands and just simply felt it in Or you could jazz it up in any way you wish if you've got other bits and pieces in your craft stash. Instead of the wool, I've used some gold and silver twine to create a ribbon. You could decorate each of the presents by using sequins, beads, wool, anything you wish. Here's my final one. The holly effect on the bottom present was simply made by using some leftover green and red wool and using the fine needle, one with the blue edge, and just trying to get it into shape while needle felting it on. I really enjoyed making this stack of presents and decorating them, and I look forward to seeing your creations on the group. Have a lovely Christmas.
Merry Christmas everyone. Welcome to the Crafty Kit Company Advent, day 5 and 6. So I'm going to be making with you over the next 2 days Christmas hedgehog. I have already made one example to show you. He is adorable. All my friends were jealous that I got this one. So we have lots to do over the next 2 days. I am breaking it down in 2 days for you, and this does take about 4 hours to do. And even though I'm quite an experienced needle felter, it still took me almost that time because I wanted to finish all the details. Preparation is the key to success. So what I've done is I've added a couple of things that I felt helped me throughout. As I'm a hairdresser, hairspray come in very handy. I have got some special wax, like a beeswax, needle threader, 3 different size needles, a fine, medium, and I've got one for later that is going to help you get all the little spikes out. Your embroidery needles, your felt, so your instructions, some little bells in your kit, a measuring tape, a needle felting pad, so that helps. Okay, so we're going to start on page 1, and before we do the body, we're going to take a palm's length of white wool. So because I've got quite small hands, I took quite a generous pinch. So how I do this is I start to roll. As I'm rolling, I take my medium size needle, the one with the green end, and I just gently felt, and then I start to roll again. Just keeps it tight, neat and in together. At least 10 centimetres long and 8 centimetres wide. A little tip that I did was I pulled a bit of the wool off so that I could just gently shape it. But before I used all the wool, start to create the shape, but measure it as well. So that is where your tape measure comes along, so about 10 centimetres, and so 8 centimetres across. So that still needs bulking up. At least I know I'm starting to already get the length. I'm not stubbing too much at the moment because I just wanted to create my ball. Just take your time felting with the green end needle, and then I would suggest you would go to the blue needle, which is finer. That starts to smooth. I think with my first one I possibly over felted him, so it's quite hard to use the reverse needle to create the spikes. So try to not over felt it. Okay, I've now created a little round shape for flat side. Now this part is going to be the front of your hedgehog. Now you need to take, I've just pulled off about a 2-inch length piece of wool. And now you're going to make roughly 2 centimetre long little snout. So just roll it up nice and tight. Use the green end needle. You do find little pieces of natural matter in your wool. Just take it out. I found just heating my hands, rolling, that creates a tighter little snout, and then just gently round it off. Now what I did was I looked at my shape, and about a third of the way down is where I thought my cute little snout could be. Just gently felted that on. Once it's on, you can start to create more of the shape that you would like. Okay, so we are now going to do the limbs. So what I've done is carefully tease the fawn wool in half. Set one piece aside, that will be for the ears and details. So use the other half and mould into a thin sausage shape, roughly 10 centimetres to 1 centimetre diameter. Okay, so just gently roll it, and then I always find, again, just heat my hands up and use your natural warmth to create your sausage. So this says measure it about 10 centimetres, and it's got a rough bit at the end. You need to cut it in half and cut again half, just over 2 centimetres. So what I did was I just gently rounded off the ends. So now you've rounded off the ends, take a piece of the bare wool. So this is going to show the little paws off. What I do is I gently wet my fingers to create a tight, a bit like a thread. What I do is I just snip 3 equal parts, and I just gently felt that into place. I always find this bit fiddly. You put them on to make it look like there's little claws. But then for the feet, this is to make it look like pads. Just gently flatten it slightly. So we've now completed the limbs. So now I'm going to add these on. So I did start with my little paws first, front paws first. They sit going in towards each other and try and match both sides. And then the little feet, I did those so they sat out. You can move them about a little bit once, so if you just gently tack them in. So once you needle felted those into the place that you would like them to sit, then took a piece of the fawn, needle felted it around the snout, just to create a little bit of colour and a little bit of depth. Just use your fine needle for this, because you're just gently shaping that in now. So now we're going to create with the deer wool again. I'm going to do the little nose. You can just put a little bit at a time. What I do is I twirl, try and catch the hairs. You can always just gently trim it after. And then do, as we did before, we're going to do the mouth now. So I'm going to use a bit of water, twirl around again. Just take your time. Don't need to rush this. You can go back to it later on if you want to just tidy it up a little bit more. And then, if you get your black wool, just take 2 little pieces and make 2 little black coal eyes. You can place them where you think fits right. You can always take them out and move them about if it's not right. You've got 2 little eyes. So at this moment, you've created the shape of your hedgehog, the limbs of your hedgehog, the little snout and eyes. The best of it is more adding colour and defining it and creating spikes. So I will see you again tomorrow.
Ba-dum, ba-dum.
Hi everyone, we're on day 6 and we're on the second day of the little Christmas hedgehog. As you can see, we're halfway through. I hope you enjoyed yesterday's. We're now going to do on this next piece is we're going to apply the little hedgehog there. Okay, so we're going to take the grey wool, so it's like a soft grey brown wool. So just rip it apart and then I start to apply. Now with this one I use the finer needle, put that in. What I do is I overlap, and what I do is I keep doing this until it's completely covered, and if you can see any white areas just gently tease and place that on. We're going to make the little ears, so I'm going to use half of the remaining fawn wool and I'm going to make a circle roughly 2 centimeters in the diameter using your medium needle. And then what I do again is I heat my hands, warm my hands up, rub again, just brings the wool together a bit tighter, and turn it over. You can use, if you want, 2 needles, or if you've got a multi-needle tool. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to create roughly a 2 centimeter diameter circle. So the way I do this is I actually cut the shape in. I might have to trim just that little bit more off, but I want to make it a little bit more condensed. Because these are the ears, you need them to be quite flat. Again, to help with the fluffiness, just rub. Just going to retrim. And then what we do is we just cut them straight in half. Just be careful with the scissors. So then what we're going to do is we're going to just gently poke them in where you think roughly the ears would be. So you'll make them even on both sides. We're now just going to add a little bit of the pink for a little blush cheeks. So use the fine blue tool. It's like he's just coming out of the warm, so he's got little flush cheeks. And then what I did myself is I added a little bit in his ears just to give them a little bit more definition. So just a little bit. So then what we're going to do, we are going to then be using your reverse needle. Now if you haven't used one of these before, it's like they do the opposite thing. So usually your barbs sit one way, so that when you needle felt, it gently goes in and it pushes the fibres together. Now with the reverse needle, that does opposite. So but with this we're going to do a technique, and it's where the white underneath, it brings the spikes. Now I did this on Mrs. Tiggy Winkle before. I personally struggle with it, but you might be better. But I do know the technique is that you push the needle in, even twisting. Oh, there we go. And little white spike is coming up. I've done it. My trick was, I think I did too tight on this one. I think I needle felted too tightly. So what I did was I did it a little bit looser. So what it will do is it will create your spikes. Now I'm going to use a little bit of soft beeswax to just give my spikes a little bit of a twist, but you can use a bit of hairspray so to create the spikes and give them a bit of hold. So on my previous one, I actually quite liked the same natural colour for my spikes, so I did that using the hairspray. But on this one, I'm hoping I might have mastered the white coming through. Maybe I shouldn't have said I mastered it. I'm sure you will, because I know a lot of people did brilliantly using this tool. But for me now, I actually would like to do my second hedgehog without the spikes, because I quite liked the little soft look. So you'll decide what's going to be better for you. Okay, so then as the last thing that you will do is, can you see my little hedgehog is all twisted up with lights? So what I did with that is, you've got green thread, you've got in your little bag of goodies, you've got your little tiny bells. Now I struggled to put these through the hole, so I actually got a larger hole embroidery needle, and I then put the 6 strands through and then just gently hooped. So then I achieved getting on. Now you can make a knot if you want to for each, to keep them separate, but to be honest, because the thread holds it anyway, I found I didn't need to. Okay, so this was my little finished hedgehog. I think he's really rather cute. So now I feel like I've got a little Mr. and a Mrs. Hedgehog. I hope you all enjoy this and you have a very Merry Christmas.
Hello again everyone, and welcome to day 7 of the Advent Kit. Today we're going to be making something which is described as small in stature with a squished little face and wrinkly charm. And we are in fact making this cute little fella, the mini pug. So having a look what's inside the packet. We've got the ball, which is the centre of the body, and we've got the fawn wool for wrapping around the ball. We've got brown for the ears, black for the eyes and nose, blue for the hat and scarf, and the white is the trim for the hat, and also there's a little bit that goes on the eyelids as well. Now it says in the instructions to take a little bit of the fawn wool off and put it on one side to be used for the legs later on. I actually made the legs before I covered the ball with the fawn wool, so I knew I had enough wool for those legs and everything else went on the ball. When you're making the ears, pinch off the same amount of wool for each ear and make the 2 ears at the same time, and then you know that they're the same size, and that applies to the eyes as well. For the scarf here, if you are finding it difficult to roll that piece of wool to get it into a round sausage shape, I suggest you put a little bit of hand cream on and then roll it, and it will stick a lot more easily. When I was putting all the bits and pieces on, I felted them on quite lightly, and then when I was happy with where they were, I went back and felted them more firmly. So here he is, ready to go on the tree. I hope you enjoy making him, and Happy Christmas everyone.
Hello, my name is Marion and I'm looking at days 8 and 9 of the Advent calendar with you and looking at making this gorgeous little train. Let's look at what we have to do. In your pack you will have honey wool, quite a large quantity of it, red, white and blue wool. Let's start with the honey wool. It says to divide it into 3 pieces, and I would suggest taking the whole long length and folding it into 3 rather than taking it and pulling it into 3 like that, because that won't work. You'll end up with a very long piece, and you really want the width of this wool when you're felting. It also says, so once you've broken it into 3 pieces, take one of your pieces, and before you go any further, think about looking ahead on the pattern, and it says to take a palm's length of wool, and that's about 18 centimetres. So roughly, if you measure it down your hand like that, that's about what you want, and just tear that off and put that to one side, because you'll need that a little bit later to finish off the bottom of the train. Now you've got to make, looking at the instructions that you have to make a block to start with from one of the pieces, and you have to measure it. Well, I find it quite difficult to keep going back to getting a tape measure out. So what I do with my pad is I've actually marked it with pins on it that are 2 centimetres, 4 centimetres, and then the distance between those two is 3 centimetres, so that's 10 centimetres altogether. And it means when you're felting your pads, I can use them to see what length I've got without having to keep moving around. So this is the block that you have to produce. It's 8 by 6. Makes it easier to do. The other little thing is you have to make a cylinder, and again it's got to be about 6, and the reason I've got it there is for 3, so it makes it easier to see. And you will find that when you're felting it, it's easier. You roll it between your hands, maybe have a little bit of hand cream on your hands to start with so they're a little bit sticky, or you can damp it with a little drop of water. Maybe I sometimes use a makeup sponge, makes it much easier, and you can just roll it and keep shaping it. You need to make sure it is quite firm in the middle, that it's not all floppy, because it doesn't work if it's all floppy. I also, you probably wondered why my pad was a bit different. I've covered mine with a piece of felt, and that keeps the pad a bit cleaner underneath, otherwise it gets quite grubby. And it also is helpful in the second stage, tomorrow's part of the Advent calendar instructions, to get things on and off the pad, otherwise you're fighting against it. You're also from the piece that you've taken off, so once you've made, you'll be making three shapes to start with. So you'll be making the back piece, which is the small rectangle, the long rectangle, and this engine part, and then you need to make this front piece like a cow catcher. Now before I go any further, you need to take off a small slither of wool off the side, because if you don't do that you won't have anything to cover your other felt fabric with. And I found with felting this that I found it easier, because it says a wedge, to actually wind it up to start with. And I'm just going to take my felting needle and I'm going to felt it onto the pad quite quickly, just to hold it, so it's more like a cylinder at one end. And I'm just going to make it a little bit bigger. And then I'm going to take that piece and bring it up so it makes more of a wedge type shape, because when I've felted that, that will be thinner at the bottom and wider at the top, and you will find that easier to do. And I think it says it needs to be about 5 centimetres, this piece. Well, That's about right, actually. That is about 5 centimetres. And then I can make this the 6 centimetres to fit on the front of the train. Now, I'm not going to show you that bit, me doing that piece, because that will take too long. But it also says about, when you come to the end, about using a pokey tool. In case you haven't seen one before, this is a pokey tool. All right, and you can use that to roughen up where you're going to stand the next piece up on the train. So you can roughen it up with that. Either use a pokey tool, a large safety pin, or maybe a darning needle. Although it says you can use these needles, your needle felting needles, those points are very fragile. And once you start pulling at it, they will break quite quickly. You really don't want to break your needle. Now, I think that's probably all for today. And I look forward to seeing you tomorrow. Bye. Hi, welcome to day 9. It's lovely to speak to you all again. And for those of you who missed yesterday, I'm Marion. I'll be guiding you through the decoration of your little train. So you will have split your wool, your red and white wool, into 4 lengths, and you will need to join these together to make the candy cane. We'll need 4 of them, 2 red, 2 white. Now I've already taken mine and I've just rubbed it, and I've dampened my fingers just to get it so it's a little bit firmer, and then I'm going to put them together and then twist them like that. And I found it helped just to stab the very end of the candy cane, just to hold them so they held together and didn't fall apart as I was twisting them. And I twisted them around and tried to get it as even as I could, and then I placed it on the train, along the length of the train, here, up, and I didn't stop. I went over and back down because I had sufficient to do it. But I pinned it into place to make sure it didn't move, and then I also made sure that once I pinned it into place that I gave it a little stab so it held it firmly in place. So I didn't have any problems with it. Now, with the front of the train, with this circle, I drew round a small cotton reel, and then I cut out the shape in paper. So I've got a small circle, and I found this a lot easier to do. And then I put my felting wool into the circle, and I just stabbed around it until it filled the hole, and tucked all the ends in as I went, like that. Then I pulled off the paper, lifted my felt, which I said yesterday was easier to do, and lifted it off, and then turned it over and felted it on the other side. So I ended up with a nice flat circle. I then took the red, very, very small slivers of the red, and wound them in my fingers, with my fingers being wet, and I made it overlap the circle, as you can see. Maybe if I hold it against the pad you'll see better. I then took those edges and tucked them in at the back, and then stabbed them in place like that. And then I was able to put that onto the front of the train and just stab it into place. Very easy, very simple, but very effective, and made it much easier to get it nice and even. Obviously you put lots of white wool on the top, so that covered over my candy cane that was going over the top there, and I put a little red dot in the middle there at the top. And then I've sewn on all my beads onto the top of it. When it comes to the wheels, you cut out a circle. I'll hold it up so you can see. Then you lay the felt over the top of it. And if you stab it down in place and then turn it over, you can then tuck everything in at the back. So you end up with a nice smooth finish. And you can see which side is the back. So it's easy to then decorate the front. And you can either put white swirls or you could put white and beads on it. It's up to you. I followed what it said in the booklet, and I did a swirl on the front ones, and I put beads on the back ones. The chimney is quite self-explanatory in making, and just make sure you stab it on to fix it on. The cow catcher, the blue on this, you do need to have very, very thin pieces of blue. So when you're tearing it off, I would say get it as thin as you can and roll it between your fingers. And again, make sure your fingers are a bit damp. I've got my little pad here, that's where I keep going to. So it's my little pad, it's damp there. And roll it like that. And then you can make it, you can put all the ones going down on the train, all the ones going down, and then you can do the one around the train as well. I then put a couple of little windows on either side on the cab. I hope that's been helpful. I was going to put some glitter on my train, but I haven't found it yet. But I will do soon. Look forward to seeing your makes. Bye.
Hello, my name is Fiona. Today we've got day 10 and there is a little riddle on the front of the packet. I'm served on a platter, often with sides, a smaller version of a feast that provides my taste is a highlight of the festive spread. What am I? Have you guessed what it is? It's a little turkey. Now, before we start, an interesting fact about turkeys. Did you know that turkeys can change the colour of their heads depending on how they're feeling? They can change from red to blue to white, whether they're calm or excited. I don't know which colour depicts which, but hey ho. So, opening today's bag, we have a little felt ball, some red and orange felt, some red, some chestnut, some yellow and some black wool. Now, as said in previous videos, it's useful to roll the little felt ball between your hands to soften it before you start felting. And also, I find, as other people have suggested, just to use small amounts of wool to start covering the ball, or else you end up with a bigger ball than what you really need. So just add small pieces of wool and you'll soon build up your ball. Other helpful tips that I've found is to do the templates rather than cutting up your book or having to photocopy. If you have freezer paper, trace the template and then you can iron that onto your felt and cut round the freezer paper on your felt, and then it saves you having to draw around the template so you don't get pen marks on your felt. So this is the first little turkey that I did. I found it tricky doing the wings and the little wattle, the red wattle, but a little tip there would be, if you want to make them flatter, if you have an iron or hair straighteners, use them just to press the wings and the wattle before you attach them to the turkey. But another way, I did a second little turkey. And what I did with these ones was I cut little shapes in felt. So this was the wing, the shape I cut for a wing, a sort of teardrop. And then I just laid wool over, some of the chestnut wool over the felt, and then needle felted that down, turning over the edges as I went, and then trimmed it off, and then using the fuzzy ends there, I used them to attach it to the actual body of the turkey. And the same I did with the wattle. I cut a little teardrop shape of red felt from what was left over, and then I didn't bother covering that with wool. I just attached it down the side of the beak, needle felted it down. And then I also found it tricky just getting the heart shapes right on the feet, the first one. So when I made this one, I had some yellow felt, and I just cut little heart shapes out of the yellow felt, and then glued them on. I also glued the tail feathers on rather than trying to needle felt them. So these were just attached, stuck together with some glue, and then the two of them stuck to the base of the ball. So also, once I covered the ball with the chestnut wool, I just snipped it with my little snippers just to get any loose fibres off. And this one, as you can see, I've added a thread so that it can be hung on the Christmas tree. And also, just to finish, a little turkey joke. What do you call a turkey on Boxing Day? Lucky. It's escaped the oven. Okay, thank you. Hope you have a Merry Christmas. Bye.
Hello and welcome to day 11 and 12 of the Crafty Kit Company Advent Calendar. My name's Janet and I'm going to be showing you a few handy hints and tips over the next 2 days as it's one of the larger projects. Inside the bag, which is clearly marked, you'll find lots of little goodies. So, first of all, we've got some raven black wool, some scarlet, drizzle, Mediterranean and white wool. There's also a large piece of white felt and a pipe cleaner, and also some leaf felt and some holly felt. And these you'll be using for the project. In the booklet, which the instructions are on page 29 and 30, you'll see there that what we're making, it's the lovely little car. And the templates for this project are on page 66. So rather than spoil your booklet, I suggest you trace your templates either onto greaseproof paper, or you could use the envelopes from last year's advent calendar, or you could use some freezer paper, which is what I've used. I'm just going to move the camera now so that you can see what I'm doing. So the templates, once you've cut them out, there's 8 altogether, but because you need to cut 4 of the wheels and 4 of the hubcaps, that's actually 16 altogether. And you cut those out of the white wool. Once you've cut the templates out, and as I say, if you're using freezer paper, it's very easy because there's a slightly shiny side, and you pop that down onto your felt and then just press it lightly with an iron. I've got a small crafting iron, or you could use an ordinary iron, but obviously be very careful. Once you've got at your shapes, you then start felting just a small amount of the white felt onto each of the little pieces.
I suggest you use the green needle, which is the coarser needle, and it speeds up felting. The blue needle, which is also in your kit, is better for the finishing off because it's a much finer needle and will give you a much better finish. Once you've done that, you then can start building up the shape of the little car. So if you start on the chassis, just by putting on small pieces of felt and just gently working it up until you get a piece like that. So you just have to, it takes a little while, it doesn't happen instantly, and as you're doing it, it will come to shape. You will perhaps need to just press it down gently with your fingers as you go. I'll just show you one other little tip. I also, with the wheels, I've actually prepared those. So once I've put the amount of white wool onto each wheel, I then got the black wool and made the tyres, and then the hubcaps, started with those with white, and then I've put the drizzle wool on top so that it looks, like real wheels, and they will be positioned on the car tomorrow. So the other things you need in your kit, which we didn't mention earlier, are some scissors or snips, and they are for just gently removing any extra little bits from your felting so it's nice and smooth. Also cocktail sticks, which we'll be using those tomorrow, and then some glue or a glue gun. So those are the other things that you might need to get ready for tomorrow. But it does tell you that on your booklet on page 29. So there's no, it's not difficult. This tells you there what you need. And the instructions are very easy to follow. So I'm sure you won't have any trouble. Okay, so I look forward to seeing you tomorrow. Okay, bye. Hello again. It's day 12 of the Crafty Kit Company Advent Calendar, and we're continuing to make Bertie, the little car. So yesterday we cut out the templates and covered them with a coating of wool, and also we made the wheels. So now I'm going to show you how to assemble everything and do all the finishing touches. So here's the little car, and as you can see, I've already put the pieces in place, and it's quite simple to do following the instructions. The wheel arches are in place. Just make sure you use the right ones. They are two different sizes when you're cutting them out. And also the instructions recommended that I use cocktail sticks to fix the wheels in place while you felt them onto the car. Well, I used a needle felting needle and just stuck that in because I needle felt quite firmly, and I struggled a little bit to get the little cocktail sticks through the car, but you might be okay. It just depends how firm your needle felt. So that's the first thing to do. So the other thing I did, which is a little hint, I added a little bit of extra wool on the chassis underneath to keep the wheels in place because I found they were a little bit wobbly. You could glue them in position if you preferred. After you've got the wheels on and all the other bits and pieces, you need to do the windows. So I've done the front screen, as you can see, and I've put some little black little sausages of black wool to replicate the windscreen wipers. And then the side windows, just put a little bit of the grey drizzle wool onto the side of the car and needle felt that into position. And then the back one is a little bit smaller. So just make the little piece of wool a little bit smaller. It does tend to go a long way, and you can always add it if you need a little bit more. So once the windows are in position, the other thing you need to do is just add the strut to the between the windows, This is all actually on the picture, so don't think I'm making this up as I go along. It's all on here if you look very closely. Okay. And you'll also notice that the little car has got some little Go Faster stripes and also a little Christmas tree on top to make it look festive. So for the little Go Faster stripes, I've got some little sausages of the Mediterranean wool, and you just simply make it into a little sausage, and then I make a longer one, and then I cut it into the right length like that. So that's the piece for the bonnet, and just felt that into place. Whoops, sorry about this. Sometimes you have to do these things a bit more slowly, but I'm trying to show you, so it's trying to speed up. And then obviously the other one is the little red one, which is just the same, the scarlet wool, and again you just trim it into the right length, and then just simply needle felt it into place. And then the one for the roof. Oh no, I haven't put the roof on yet, sorry, whoops-a-daisy. So the roof is another little piece that you've already made, and you just needle felt that into position. Okay. It will need a little bit more work than I'm doing today, but I'm sure you'll get the idea of what you have to do. I think the reason that all these bits are separate like this is because the Volkswagen Beetle was quite a sort of, it was a car that was designed so that it was easy. It was designed just after the war, and it was then easy to replace pieces, and if they needed to be replaced for any reason, and it kept the price of the car down as well. So we just need to pop that onto the roof, the little red bit, and then the little blue bit, the Mediterranean wool. There you are. I will show you this in a minute. Sorry, it's not very easy sometimes for me to show you and to work at the same time, but you'll get the idea when I hold it up. There you are. Do excuse me if it's not 100% level. I wasn't using a spirit level. And then finally, I've added a little roll of black wool, made a little roll of the black wool, and I'm going to do the numbers 35. So I'm sure some of you can work out what I'm doing, because there was another little car, wasn't there, that had a different number on it. So this one's going to be 35 rather than the other number. So just, there's the 3, just needle felted that on very quickly, and then the other of the 5 like that. Okay. I will finish this off more neatly, obviously, but this is so that you don't sit here for an hour or so. So there you are. There's the 35 on the car. And finally, to make the Christmas tree that goes on the roof. First of all, you need to cut a piece of the pipe cleaner, 12 centimetres long, and then the leaf and holly felt both need to be 24 centimetres long and 2.4 centimetres deep. Again, all these instructions are already printed in your little booklet, so please don't think that you'll never remember all this, because it's all there, easily, it's written down and very easy to follow. So I have made several of Joe's felted flowers, so I have used this sort of technique for other things such as the lavender and the wisteria. So, but this time, I usually use the glue gun, but for this I decided having had a little trial, and I decided to use a glue stick. So first of all, you have to glue down the felt that you want to be on the inside. Oops, and put the other colour on top, and then I would like the green felt on the outside, so then I'm going to put a very fine little bit of glue to the other side, not on the little bit, the fringe bit, on the blank bit. Okay, and then I'm going to take the pipe cleaner and start at the top and just twirl it round. Now, the reason that I've started using the glue stick is because, like many of us, I'm sure, I've ended up burning my fingers, and because this isn't there's no rush with this project, I found it worked really well, and it's not as if it's got to be there's no sort of, hasn't got to be strong or anything. It's only, as long as it's held in place. The instructions also suggest that you could actually felt it on, but I found the glue was the easiest for me anyway. Okay, so there you are. There's your finished tree. And then to make it look a little bit festive, I've just added some of the little bells that you've also got in your Christmas kit. So there's my little car called Bertie, and just so I can hang him on the Christmas tree, I've taken one of the little ribbons from my clothes, that I've included for hanging them up in the wardrobe. I always find they get in the way, so I just cut them off and then I keep them, and then they're very useful for attaching for something like this to make a nice tie, so that you can hang your little felted item to the tree. And then I'm just going to put that on like that, and there you are. I wish you all a very happy Christmas.